My name is Christina. I'm a typical high school senior living with my mother. My parents divorced 10 years ago, and since then, it's just been the two of us in an apartment. My mother says the reason for the divorce was my father's infidelity, and she has harbored resentment towards him from the time of the divorce. She openly shared the details of his affairs with me, even though I was just a grade schooler. I loved my father and didn't want to hear any of it. Regardless of how I felt, my mother would routinely call him a cheater, as if it were nothing. Whenever I wanted to see him, she would say, "You're better off not seeing such a despicable person." She never gave me his contact details, and I was never allowed to meet him after the divorce. Life with just my mother felt dull. She would go out at night, drink, and come back late. She'd tell me, "We're struggling, so it's instant noodles for dinner." Yet she always ate out herself. She worked in a factory during the day, but said raising a child on a low salary was tough. I couldn't even get proper school supplies, making me feel awkward at school. She never came to any school events, always claiming she had to work. Gradually, I began to dislike her. But as a child, there was nothing I could do about it. As middle school ended and high school entrance exams approached, I set a future goal for myself. I wanted to study hard and become a nurse. Since I couldn't afford extracurricular activities or clubs, I had plenty of time to study, and I planned to use that to achieve my dream. I thought my mother would support this, so I asked her to buy me some prep books for the entrance exams. But her response was disappointing. "Mom, can you buy me some prep books for my exams?" "What are you talking about? You don't need books if you're not going to advance your education and just work." "What? I can't go to high school? We don't have the money for high school. If you want to go, you'll have to earn the tuition yourself." "That's so unfair." Hearing her words initially made me feel hopeless, but I quickly shifted my mindset. If I could pay my way through high school by working, then I just had to work and attend school simultaneously. It was better to be busy working than to spend more time at home with my mother. Taking her words as motivation, I studied hard for my high school entrance exams. I passed and managed to pay the enrollment fee with the money I had saved, and my mother covered the rest temporarily. Once I started high school, I began working at a pub to pay for my tuition. Working and then coming home to study was tougher than I expected. Especially in the beginning, getting used to this routine was hard, and I often fell ill from exhaustion. But as summer ended, I adapted and managed to balance both work and study. However, I had a major grievance. My mother would take my entire salary. Though I said I would earn for my tuition, I never agreed to hand over all my earnings. On payday, she would take all the money, giving me only $20 a month for lunch, which was never enough. When I ran out of money, I'd skip lunch and just eat the meal provided at the pub. I endured this lifestyle just to graduate high school. But then a devastating incident occurred. After summer break, on my first day back at school, my homeroom teacher called me to the staff room. There, I was informed that my tuition payments were overdue. I was sure I had been paying with my salary each month, so I couldn't understand why it was overdue. A terrible thought crossed my mind: could my mother have been stealing my money? I wanted to believe she wouldn't stoop so low, even if she was my mother. That day, after work, I rushed home where I found my mother just returning, drunk. "Mom, it seems my tuition is overdue. Where's the money I gave you? If you forgot to pay, make sure you transfer it tomorrow." "Tomorrow? No way, I've already spent it all." She reeked of alcohol. "Spent it? What do you mean? Being a single mother is hard. I need to relieve stress, or I can't handle it." "You didn't spend it on drinking, did you?" "Correct. Just quit high school and work full-time. Forget about studying and take care of your mother." I was appalled by my mother's toxic behavior and impulsively ran out of the house. With nowhere to go, I returned to the pub, where the manager, a woman in her 40s and a single mother herself, listened to my story after closing. She understood my situation well because she had raised a daughter who was now 20. That's terrible. I can't believe she's the same mother. I don't want to see her face anymore. If things stay this way, I'll be forced to drop out of school. I have to pay the overdue tuition fees, or I'll be expelled. I'll advance you next month's salary to cover it. Can you really do that? I'll manage it with my pocket money. Really? Are you sure? It's like they say, we help each other out in tough times. But in return, you'll need to work extra hard when we're short-staffed. Of course. Thank you so much. Thanks to the manager's generosity, I was able to pay my tuition. However, I couldn't keep relying on borrowed money forever. I knew talking to my mother would be useless, so I decided to contact my father, whom I hadn't communicated with in 10 years. According to my mother, my father had an affair, never paid compensation or child support, and now had remarried and had a child. I was hesitant to rely on my father, who was living with his new family. But I tried to reach out anyway. I didn't have his contact, but I found it on my mother's phone while she was asleep. On my next day off, I mustered the courage to call him. He answered immediately. Hello? Hello. Dad? Is that Christina? Yes, it's been a long time. What's all the formality for? Christina, is it really you? Yeah, it's me. I'm so happy to hear your voice. What's going on? Well, when I told him everything about my mother, there was silence on the other end of the line. Dad? Hello? Oh, sorry. It's strange that your mom hasn't paid the tuition. I've been giving her all my earnings from my part-time job every month. What? Really? Yes, I went to high school on the promise that I'd earn my own tuition. You're kidding. I've been sending child support and tuition every month. What? It turned out my mother had lied about not receiving child support and had been pocketing the money from both me and my father. Given the likelihood of other lies from her, I decided to meet with my father urgently. It was confusing whether to be happy or conflicted about seeing my father, who was now with another family. Nervously, I entered the cafe where we agreed to meet. My father had aged a bit over the past 10 years, but his kind demeanor hadn't changed. Dad. Christina, you've grown so much. As he spoke, tears of joy streamed down his face. Meeting him felt as if the 10 years of separation were merely an illusion, and there was no distance between us. After ordering drinks, he began to slowly share his side of the story about the divorce. It was completely different from what my mother had told me. It turns out, it was not my father but my mother who had an affair. 10 years ago, she suddenly said she wanted to live with her lover and asked for a divorce. My father wanted custody, but my mother claimed that I wanted to stay with her. He reluctantly gave up custody. I, of course, never said a single word about wanting to stay with my mother. That's a lie. She just wanted the compensation. She told me you had an affair and that we should never see you again, because you didn't pay any compensation or child support. I've been sending child support every month, unchanged. I've been transferring $1,000 each month for tuition and child support since you started high school. That much? I've been giving Mom over $1,000 from my part-time job earnings, so she's been pocketing it all. Thanks for paying child support even though you have a new family, Dad. New family? What are you talking about? Aren't you remarried and living with a new family since the divorce? I've never remarried. I've been living alone since the divorce. So everything Mom told me was a lie. Furthermore, my mother had claimed she was remarried, and that I was close to my new father, which is why she refused any visits. Of course, she has never remarried, and there's no new father. It's all blatant lies. Learning the truth, my father and I felt intense anger at being torn apart by my mother's actions. I couldn't live with my mother anymore, and began secretly preparing to leave the house. Unaware of this, My mother kept hurling terrible words at me every time she saw me, which I secretly recorded and sent to my father each time. One day after work, a drunken my mother confronted me. "Hey, are you still going to school? Don't tell me you paid the tuition without permission." "I did pay the tuition." "Huh? How?" "With my part-time job money. Don't do things on your own. If you have that much money, give it to me." "Do you have any idea how much money I've spent raising you? It's not even your money." "What?" "Nothing. Quit school by the end of this month and start working. Got it? Don't decide that on your own. You should just work to support me for the rest of your life. Be grateful I gave birth to you." "That's horrible. You're the worst. I no longer consider you my mother." I finally packed my things and ran away from the house. I contacted my father immediately, and he came to pick me up in his car. "Are you okay? I heard the recordings. You don't have to go back to that house, let's live together." "Really? Can I? I just signed a lease for a spacious apartment today. So you don't need to work anymore. Study all you want and hang out with your friends as much as you like." "Dad. Don't worry about Mom, I'll handle it." Thus, I started living at my father's house. The next day, my mother called, but instead of expressing concern, she immediately started talking about money when I answered the phone. "Where are you? You're coming back by the next payday, right?" "I'm not coming back." "Huh? You have nowhere else to go, don't talk nonsense." "I've decided to live with Dad." "Your father? What do you mean?" "All of your lies have been exposed. I won't give you any of my earnings anymore." "Huh? How am I supposed to live without your salary? Why don't you work? You've been living off my salary. And the child support from Dad, right? When I called your workplace and mentioned Mom's name, they said no such person worked there. You snooped around? How dare you suspect your own parent? That's the lowest. I don't want to hear anything from a mom who's been stealing her daughter's money. Just come back right now. I'm sure you're a burden on your father, too. Talk directly with Dad from now on. Don't contact me again. Goodbye." Wait. After hanging up, I immediately called my father to tell him about the conversation. He said he would reach out to my mother right away. That evening, when I got home from work, my father had made dinner and was waiting for me. I asked if he had spoken to my mother, and he started explaining everything. He said that when he called her out for lying, she quickly admitted it, shamelessly claiming, "I can't survive without child support." My father, exasperated, told her, "I'm taking custody of Christina, so I won't be paying child support anymore." This drove her into a rage as she shouted, "Give Christina back to me," and caused a commotion over the phone. When my father suggested involving a lawyer to settle things properly, she immediately backed down, pleading, "Please, no lawyers." However, it was clear that discussing anything with her wouldn't lead to any resolution. Ignoring her protests, my father consulted a lawyer he knew. With all the recorded evidence I had provided, the lawyer assured us it would be easy to demand compensation from her. I realized how much I had endured without proper care and support, even for essentials like food. Under the lawyer's guidance, we proceeded to court, and custody was officially granted to my father. Although my mother wasn't happy with the decision, there was no way she could contest the outcome in court. I began a new life with my father, free from stress and filled with happiness. Though my father told me I didn't need to work anymore, I wanted to keep working at the pub, where my manager had helped me so much when I needed it. I decided to continue my job as before, and my father repaid my manager, settling everything regarding my tuition. One day, as I finally started living like an ordinary high school student, I left school and saw my mother waiting by the gate. The moment she spotted me, she ran over with a furious look and grabbed my arm, shouting at the top of her lungs, "I can't go out drinking anymore because of you. Give me all the money you have right now." She reeked of alcohol. Showing up at my high school drunk in broad daylight was beyond normal behavior. I tried my best to resist. But I couldn't overpower her, and she snatched my wallet. I kept yelling, "Give it back," but she opened it and tried to take my money. At that moment, a student who had been watching ran to get a teacher. The teacher grabbed my mother's arm to restrain her, and soon the police arrived. After explaining everything, they took my mother away. According to the police, she acted violently during questioning and ended up spending the night at the station. Eventually, my grandparents were contacted to take her into custody. Her parents, known for their strictness, were furious that she had caused such trouble with the police. Disowned by her own parents, my mother was forced into a lonely, impoverished life. Unable to go out partying every night, she began working at a nightclub. However, her strong-willed and selfish personality led to repeated conflicts with customers, resulting in further police involvement. After moving from one club to another due to constant trouble, she eventually found herself in an illegal establishment and vanished from sight. Now, my father and I are living happily together, with no trace of my past life with my mother. My father covers my school and living expenses, allowing me to live comfortably and happily. My part-time earnings now serve as my spending money, giving me the freedom to go out with friends. I want to dedicate my remaining high school years to both studying and enjoying life with joy and positivity, free from constraints. I'm looking forward to living my life the way I want from now on.